It's now my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Howard Wilinski, one of the Political Science Department's most loyal friends. Howard graduated from UCLA in 1972. He majored in political science because he was interested in politics. What a thought. And he's been active in Democratic politics ever since. He served on the California Democratic Party Central Committee since 1977 and chaired the Platform Committee for the last 10 years. He's been a delegate to 3 Democratic National Conventions and served on the Platform Committee for 4 others. Through many years, he's been a vocal advocate for higher education, meaning us. Through all this time, Howard's day job was at Warner Brothers Distributing, where he rose in the ranks to become Senior Vice President of Administration. Please welcome Howard Wilinski.
Hello, graduates. Are you proud to have graduated today? Being admitted here is a very big achievement, but the work you accomplished to earn your degree is a massive achievement. Congratulations to your parents, your fathers, and today's Father's Day, and your mothers, your family and friends, and the rest of your support group. I never imagined when I threw my cap in the air 47 years ago on this campus at the Drake Track Stadium that I'd be standing here today giving your commencement speech. I'm incredibly honored. And let me just say right from the start, I'm not in a position to pay your student debt. I know, very sad. But I'm happy to say my journey from this starting place has been rich with meaning. My passion for creating good public policy was seated right here. And for many years, I've advocated throughout our political systems to promote higher learning, to make a UC education more accessible and maintain its leading edge. I'd like to say a word to the faculty. You are smaller in number than I think you should be, yet you have taught more students than ever before. So thank you for all you've done to make this day possible. To me, you are heroes, and I hope today we are celebrating UCLA's centennial year. In many ways, my path 47 years ago was much easier than yours. Getting into UCLA, frankly, was a lot easier. California's master plan for higher ed was 8 years old when I started here, continuing the concept of tuition free. I had to pay 2 small fees, $300 registration fee and a $150 education fee. But then you have technology that I didn't have. I thought I was lucky to have an electric typewriter and to have abandoned carbon paper for the copier. You don't know what carbon paper is? Maybe you should Google it. Historically, governors who were supportive of the university were of both parties, and governors who were unsupportive were also of both parties. History tells us whether we were in challenging economic times or good times, UC flourished when advocates played a role and pushed for the better. I know some of you have been to Sacramento, and I've seen you there. Earl Warren was elected governor in 1942, serving 10 years. Warren loved the university with all his heart. He grew up in Bakersfield, leaving to attend Berkeley. He felt the Berkeley experience is what made him. He became close friends with a classmate, Gordon Sproul, who became UC president for 28 years. As World War II was ending, Congress adopted legislation granting the returning military personnel very generous educational benefits. It was clear we needed to expand college for the returning veterans. UC had 3 campuses, Berkeley, Los Angeles, and Santa Barbara, and 2 agricultural stations in Davis and Riverside. It was a time of rapid growth and generous infusion of resources into the university. Earl Warren never said no to his friend Gordon Sproul, and the university was the beneficiary. 5 years later, in 1958, Pat Brown was elected governor. UC had 5 campuses then. The Riverside and Davis ag stations had become general campuses. The children of the World War II veterans were now in elementary school. Pat Brown knew that California needed to make room for 300,000 additional students by 1970. I was one of those. During Pat Brown's 8 years, 3 more campuses were built: San Diego, Irvine, and Santa Cruz. And the master plan for higher education was adopted, becoming the envy of the rest of the nation. Ronald Reagan succeeded Pat Brown, followed by Jerry Brown, representing 2 different political parties. They both were unsupportive of the university, generating 16 years of very poor budgets. Though the rhetoric was very different, the results for the university were very similar. In the closing days of the first Jerry Brown administration, David Gardner returned as president to UC from the University of Utah. Gardner had worked for UC most of his life. He asked his staff to tell him what amount of money was needed to make UC whole again, following 16 years of Ronald Reagan and Jerry Brown. They answered 31%, and they followed, but no, you can't ask the governor for 31%. It's unheard of. A few months later, without his staff, Gardner has lunch with Governor Deukmejian and makes the case for 31%. 8 months later, the new budget was adopted with a 31% increase. In good economic times, UC did very well under Governor George Deukmejian, as did his new friend, President David Gardner. Governor Pete Wilson sustained the good times during his 8 years. Then came Gray Davis, who loved the university the same way that Earl Warren loved this university. Whenever there was a few extra million, he kind of just slid it into the university. He originated the idea of 4 institutes funded with seed money from the state to be designated as public-private partnerships, awarded on a competitive basis. The Nanotechnology Institute on this campus is a lasting legacy toward that effort. Gray Davis was replaced in a recall election by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Unfortunately, the Terminator was no friend of the university. He presided over a massive downturn in the economy, and then came Jerry Brown again. His first budget, due to difficult economic times, amounted to a cut of $1 billion to the university, nearly 1/3 of the entire UC budget from the state. As times slowly got better, UC received a level of inflation. Brown's last UC budget was his worst in good economic times, a mere 3%. So here's my final tally of 9 governors since World War II. 5 were supportive, 3 of them were Republicans and 2 Democrats. 4 unsupportive, 2 Republicans and 2 Jerry Browns. Support for the university comes in many forms and many different types of people. Governors, legislators, educators, students, and people like me, alumni, and the general community. Here are a few days in my life advocating for the university. Gray Davis was governor. The Assembly proposed cutting UC's budget by $200 million. I discovered this from Steve Arditi, UC's chief advocate in Sacramento, on a sleepy Wednesday afternoon in late May. Timing was critical. The next evening, by chance, one of my closest friends was holding a political event for Speaker Bob Hertzberg in San Diego. I had known the speaker for many years. He is a strong supporter of UC. So I drove down the next afternoon and arrived at the event. I spotted a person wearing a cow tie. I explained the situation. I say, let's go talk to the speaker. I grab my friend, the host. So we huddle around the speaker, the 3 of us. We asked him, do you know what happened to UC in the budget? We explained. And the following week, the Budget Conference Committee was meeting. They would make the decision, subject to the governor's blue pencil. A week later, I walk into my office at Warner Brothers, and at 2 a.m., there's a voicemail. The $200 million had been restored. Thank you, Speaker Hertzberg. We have with us today the host of that event who drove down from San Diego. He's a member of the Board of Regents, Richard Lieb. As the political science graduating class in the year of UCLA centennial, you will pursue many different paths. Some may go in the government, the private sector, more education, law school, maybe an advanced degree. Whatever course you choose, it shouldn't stop you from advocating for your passions. I got a piece of advice when I was 23 years old, working at MGM Studios in my hometown in Culver City. I was told to see this well-connected wise man. He looked at my resume and said, I could go down the path of the entertainment industry, and I'd probably be successful, or I could go down the path of government or politics, but you can't do both. It turned out he was absolutely wrong. Beware of the wise man. They're not always right. So while I stayed in the entertainment business for 44 years, I've been a political activist, donor, advocate for over 50, and still going strong. I don't believe what occurs in Washington or Sacramento are spectator activities. There is a role to play if you choose to find it. But I suggest to you, you can't leave it to others. Like what happens on this floor in Pauley, you have to play offense, and sometimes you have to play defense. As you leave this pavilion, ready to enter the next phase of your lives, remember every day you have an opportunity to win one for your team. The score matters, but fighting for what you believe in is a life's work. UC President David Gardner, speaking to a room of 500 alums, said, "Universities cannot engage in political activities, but alumni can. Universities cannot make political contributions, but alumni can. Universities cannot endorse candidates for public office, but alumni can." Today, graduates, you are alumni. Welcome.